This is Pulse News. Today we're tracking a major geopolitical shift. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has welcomed improving ties with China, just as Washington turns up the heat on New Delhi over Russian oil purchases. With US tariffs looming, is India moving closer to Beijing? And what does that mean for the balance of power in Asia? Let's break it down. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has publicly welcomed improving ties with China, crediting mutual respect for each other's interests as the foundation for a new phase in relations. His comments came just days after Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited India, the first such trip in 3 years. Modi also confirmed he looks forward to meeting Xi Jinping at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin later this month. On the surface, these are cautious diplomatic gestures, but dig deeper and the timing tells a bigger story. India is recalibrating its foreign policy because Washington, under Donald Trump's renewed presidency, has begun threatening higher tariffs in retaliation for New Delhi's continued purchases of discounted Russian oil. Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett went so far as to accuse India of profiteering from Russian crude, calling it Indian arbitrage. That single phrase, Indian arbitrage, sums up Washington's frustration. India buys cheap oil from Moscow, refines it, and sells petrochemicals abroad, often at handsome margins. In US eyes, this not only undermines sanctions pressure on Russia, but enriches India's elite while hurting American manufacturers. So Trump is swinging the tariff hammer. But here's the irony. Instead of isolating New Delhi, Washington's pressure may be pushing India closer to China. For Modi, warming ties with Xi is not a choice born of friendship but of necessity, a geopolitical hedge in a world where the US can no longer be counted on as a predictable partner. Trump's approach to India is classic Trump, blunt, transactional, and punitive. India has been slapped with 25% tariffs on goods, a move justified by the White House as a response to India's trade surplus with the US. But behind the economic rhetoric lies political irritation. Trump has long resented India's refusal to credit him for past diplomatic successes. When he claimed to have de-escalated an India-Pakistan conflict, New Delhi dismissed the idea, while Islamabad publicly thanked him. That snub left a mark. Trump also views India's oil deals with Russia as an indirect way of keeping Moscow afloat, something he wants to avoid tackling head-on. By targeting India, he pressures Russia without ever directly confronting Putin. Most importantly, Trump sees India as an easier target than China. Washington already tried extreme tariffs on Beijing during Trump's first term. The result? China retaliated fiercely, weaponizing rare earth exports and absorbing economic pain with surprising resilience. India, by contrast, lacks the same retaliatory leverage. The US playbook is clear: punish India economically, pressure it diplomatically, and test how far Modi is willing to bend. For India, the squeeze is real. The country is dependent on affordable Russian energy, and giving it up would mean higher prices at home, politically risky for Modi. With Washington closing in, New Delhi needs breathing space. Enter Beijing. Wang Yi's visit was not just symbolic, it paved the way for visa relaxations for business and cultural exchanges, talks on easing export controls on fertilizers and critical minerals, discussions about resuming religious pilgrimages from India to Tibet. These may seem like small steps, but in diplomacy, symbolism matters. By extending olive branches, both sides are signaling a willingness to separate economics from security disputes, a pragmatic recalibration rather than a romantic reset. Make no mistake, mistrust runs deep. Border clashes in 2020, Beijing's ties with Pakistan, and India's role in the China +1 strategy all weigh heavily. Yet several forces push them together. Geography. The Himalayas make sustained war costly and strategically limited. Neither side can afford an endless border confrontation. China's Pakistan headache. Projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor have faced financial strain and repeated militant attacks. For Beijing, Pakistan no longer looks like a reliable growth partner. Manufacturing logic. As China pivots toward high-tech industries, it needs to offload low-value manufacturing. India, with its massive workforce, is the natural destination. Shared colonial legacy. Both nations carry the scars of Western imperialism and are vocal about reshaping a world order dominated by Washington. Global South identity. Awkward as the label may be, India and China often find themselves grouped together in calls for fairer international institutions. This doesn't mean they trust each other, but necessity has a way of building partnerships, especially when both sides feel cornered by Washington. The upcoming Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is now the stage for this delicate dance. Modi and Xi are expected to meet, but don't expect dramatic breakthroughs. Instead, the summit will likely produce incremental agreements on trade facilitation, renewed promises of people-to-people exchanges, vague but positive language about mutual respect and shared growth. This is how trust is rebuilt, slowly, cautiously, and through practical cooperation. If the SCO summit ends with warmer body language and fewer hostile headlines, it will already count as a success. If SCO is about practical cooperation, BRICS is about global ambition. But here lies attention. India's view. BRICS should be non-Western, not anti-West. For New Delhi, the bloc is about diversification, not confrontation. China's view. BRICS is a tool to counter US hegemony and build an alternative world order. This difference matters. India does not want to be seen as forming an anti-American alliance, especially given its partnerships in the Quad with the US, Japan, and Australia. The question then is whether India and China can cooperate within BRICS without stepping on each other's geopolitical toes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many world leaders still treat Trump as a temporary disruption, but analysts suggest it may be the other way around. Biden's presidency was the aberration. The US has grown more transactional, belligerent, and inward-looking. For India, this means two things. It cannot rely on US security guarantees the way Japan or South Korea can. It must diversify its partnerships, even if that means cautiously working with China. This is not about replacing the US with China. It's about hedging, making sure India is not isolated if Trump's America goes fully protectionist. Russia looms large in this story. India continues to buy Russian oil, both for economic necessity and strategic autonomy. Trump's decision to hit India harder than Russia is telling. Russia is the seller of the oil, yet it escapes US punishment. India, the buyer, faces tariffs. Why? Because Trump imagines himself as a possible Ukraine dealmaker. Sanctioning Russia too harshly would rob him of that bargaining chip. This double standard frustrates New Delhi and makes Beijing look like a more consistent partner by comparison. Skeptics argue that no amount of US pressure can erase decades of mistrust. The border disputes remain unresolved. China still supports Pakistan diplomatically. India continues to participate in US-backed groupings like the Quad, but pragmatism often overrides ideology. If both sides can keep security disputes compartmentalized while expanding economic cooperation, the relationship can at least be stabilized. That doesn't mean friendship, it means coexistence with benefits. So where does this leave us? Trump's tariffs may have unintended consequences, nudging India closer to Beijing. Modi's outreach is less about trust and more about hedging. Xi's response is shaped by China's own struggles, slowing growth, failed investments in Pakistan, and the need for new markets. The world is watching whether two of Asia's biggest powers can set aside suspicion long enough to cooperate. If they succeed, it could reshape global trade and power balances. If they fail, it will only deepen the fractures in an already unstable world. Either way, the message is clear. The old global order is fading, and countries like India and China are writing the new rules. Not out of choice, but out of necessity. You've been watching Pulse News. As Modi prepares to meet Xi Jinping at the Shanghai Cooperation Summit, the stakes couldn't be higher. Tariffs, oil, and shifting alliances are redrawing the map of global politics. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest international analysis.